Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the Serial Entrepreneur Show. We are so excited to have you and to introduce you to today's guest, Alex Nocifera. He is the CEO of LOMA, which stands for Local Marketing. I can't wait for you to listen in on how he helps franchises with different locations all across the country help to market better to their local communities. This is his fourth venture-backed company, and I'm so excited to tell you more about it and how the franchise industry is different because LOMA is behind them.
Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you.
Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Excited that you're here. So on the website, I saw that your team has like 50 years collectively working with the franchise industry. How would you finish the sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
Ooh, good question. Maybe the most important attribute for an entrepreneur is just the perseverance element. Nothing is linear. Nothing is happening tomorrow. You're going to get slapped around 20 times before you get it right. So it's that perseverance element on having the conviction of a problem that you sort of deeply believe in and want to see succeed and follow through with.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a story there, or maybe a couple, and I'm excited to pull them out. But when was the moment that you knew, wow, I'm going to keep getting slapped around, but I'm going to keep persevering? Is there a story there?
Yeah, I feel like it probably started as a kid. Like I remember a business partner of my father's, who knows how, but got his hands on a bunch of golf attire. And he says to my dad, hey, would your son Alex have any interest in going to the swap meet and selling it to the older people who go to swap meets? And I literally slung boxes of like silky golf shirts. And this is the 80s.
Right.
And, just slapped around with rejection, people laughing. But it was like the little seller in me was born. But the story behind me becoming like a real entrepreneur was waiting in line at a Starbucks. The year was 2005. And this was before everyone's face planted on an iPhone.
Yeah.
The line was out the door and everyone's just sort of, looking around. And I just thought to myself, this was a time where flat screen TVs were becoming more common. The cost of them were coming down. The internet was becoming more mobile, and just the bulb went off of like, why not create a TV network that would feed into this audience, this line out the door waiting for their coffee? And so truly, this is someone who graduated from the University of Arizona. I have no degree. I had a degree in business, but like no formal training in how to start a company. Just kept researching. Nothing else was like it out there. One of the elements was I grew up in Phoenix, and for whatever reason, Phoenix is really like the anchor of outdoor advertising. So we had some friends that were pretty successful in the outdoor advertising business, and curiosity led to, it could be like some form of outdoor advertising, but programmed at the store level, meaning it's going to speak Manhattan Beach or it's going to speak that town in Indiana, and then it's going to sell some ads. And outborn was a company called Ripple TV. That was me being born as an entrepreneur sort of form.
So you're standing in line too long, too long in that line. And where were you going to? Was it a corporate job?
Yeah, corporate job. I was in business development. It truly was that moment of like the idea, the bulb totally exploded.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so usually this is where I ask you what led you to entrepreneurship. So you must not have been too thrilled with the business development job. And then you had these other connections. And this is some of the things that I love to explore with people because number one, not everybody takes the time to do that, but that it also started when you were a kid. We hear so many of those stories here that there's something that gave you the confidence to do it later. Because, that swap meet, that's early hours. That's like you said, slinging some, in your case, silky golf shirts. I really believe it like sets us up for later on when we want to take the leap and to do something that maybe just hasn't been done before, hasn't been heard of before. I love that. What kind of pushback was there? What was like the journey to get those two prominent ventures to back you first?
Well, prior to that, I went here in Los Angeles to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, which was the sort of OG coffee place in LA. And legit 10 times, like just denied. And then finally, I had the cojones to start sending the CEO an email, this concept that would change the experience at Coffee Bean. And thankfully, his name is Sunny Sassoon. He saw the little fighter and he let me in the door. My dad's advice was always like, look, they're not letting you in the door, knock it down. And that was that persistence, just screaming at it, right? And then, right after that, back in the day, there was a good sized chain called Dietrich's Coffee, and it was based in also Southern California. Eventually got bought by Starbucks. And Rocky was the CEO, and Rocky let me in the door, and we got them. What sort of leads to present time for me was for me to build this TV network and in essence, build an audience. I was looking at retail and multi-unit brands as the distribution channel, right? So if I could get a coffee bean, I would get 150 storefronts in Los Angeles DMA, and that would equal millions of eyeballs on a daily basis. So what it started for me that I've been sort of working for almost 20 years now is this playbook on how to, in essence, distribute product inside a multi-unit organization, which is also very much about franchising. And so when I took the distribution deals to when I needed to raise capital to really now go build a business, the chicken and the egg here is you had to go get distribution before you can build out.
Right.
And we had started to get distribution. And so the Ripple journey, we ended up getting over 15,000 locations signed up for exclusive digital advertising and digital rights inside of those stores and building out this big TV network nationwide.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Okay. So tell me, what is something that people would be surprised to learn about those early days or even the early days of LOMA?
Well, I mean, there's so many, right? It's such a schizophrenic path. I mean, it's like, one day you think you're on top and the next day you think you're dead. But that human element is hard. Of course, you miss, it really can set you back when you miss. And so I'd say the building of the team to me is probably the hardest variable in this formula, being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. You mentioned it. We've just hit over 100 founders and entrepreneurs. We've interviewed 100, I don't know, 110, 115, and we're taking a break for summer. And I'm reminded of a question we ask usually later on is about what are some of the hardest things, like if you were to categorize the struggle. And almost to a person, everybody has said like, yeah, funding's hard. Yeah, this is hard. But it's always that human piece. It's just a lot to manage. It's not that you don't try to hire well. Of course you do, but people have their own stuff. And you're also balancing a bit of all of that. Let's take that up a notch because you support businesses, business owners, franchise owners. They are an entrepreneur that is, a bit different than you, right? They are taking someone else's vision or a business in a box and they're like, okay, we're going to run with this. I sometimes get frustrated to see and wonder, because I don't know, hopefully you'll tell me. I wonder sometimes some local franchises, how come they don't do better marketing, for the lack of better words? I want to see them more. I want to see them different. What's a theme that you see that you're like, this is why they're successful, even when they don't see something coming?
I feel like I truly have a PhD in this topic at this point because I've been working with this constituent for really 2 solid decades. And what I've really concluded to is being a small business operator and really like a franchise operator is so hard because of all the things we just talked about. You have to hire people. There's a plumbing leak. Your point of sale system is on the outs, all this, right? I really have concluded the last thing they have time for is to be good at local marketing. Historically, that's what they thought. Let's let the local operator be the marketer in the community. And I think that's before we had 58,000 local marketing channels to choose from. I think the analogy that I use for this that works well is think about a 401k's purpose. Like it takes a sliver of your check and goes to work on your behalf. Why? Because investing is gnarly. Investing is hard. And it's about constantly investing and thinking about which different areas are going to be more lucrative or not and following the trend. These 401ks are doing that all for you. They've done the research. They know that Nicole wants steady diet of like mid to low risk over the next 25 years, and they're going to just steadily get you there. Running a small business is the same thing. And marketing isn't this one time, kiss one baby and you're good. You've got to shake those hands and slap some hands and, high fives constantly to get that local awareness. The one thing I would say, number one, is the resources. Number two is just don't put your consumer hat on. Think about how many options you have for everything, for a burger, for a massage, for who's going to do your taxes. You've got 58,000 options on that front. So just the notion of staying top of mind as a local business or service is really hard now. Yes. So what LOMA does is we don't directly work with franchisees. What we do is go to the parent franchisor and say, look, we've got a tool set for you to guardrail and support your franchisee partners. And it will keep an always on voice on their behalf where they don't have to do a thing.
Oh, love it.
So it automates the last mile for the franchisor. Why that's so important is franchisors in every franchise disclosure document or agreement, they yield some form of royalty. Okay. So think about this. The US has about 3.5 million storefronts, and the average one does about $1 million a year. So if you're the parent franchisor, I believe the average take on royalties, let's call it 8%. That's 80 grand a year on royalties. If local marketing and awareness get improved, your average goes to 1.1, 1.2, and your 80 just went up. Your 80 grand in royalties. So they have this big vested interest in seeing the average unit sales volume go up. But what LOMA enables them and empowers them to do is create this automation. We really truly have software that enables or activates local personalization across every single unit that they operate. And that is the game changer. We really have this disruptive, sort of revolutionary dynamic where we can truly generate personalization at that storefront level and enable it throughout a whole system. And we've already got 20 national brands on the platform. The platform's principles are based on helping a multi-unit system plan. So really, what are the objectives, let's say for this summer or back to school in the fall or whatever, right? So you plan out your objectives, and brands are really good about sort of the seasonal and sort of the planning calendar, the objectives throughout the year, right? They know the ups and the downs throughout the year. So pillar number one is planning. Number two is activation. So then based on those objectives of the plan, how do we create an activation that really fits the needs of those objectives and that plan? So what I mean by that is that the activation is based on a diversification of, like, say you're a demographic that this brand is trying to reach. How do I reach Nicole? Well, we know Nicole owns a home in the area. We know Nicole is on social media. We know Nicole has kids that go to the local schools. We're literally going to create a plan and an activation that sort of dives into that demographic that really is our core loyal customer. So through LOMA software, we're going to set up an activation plan for you. And that's going to be with some direct mail. We have a partner that will make calls into schools to do fundraisers. We have a partner who has the ability to do canvassing at events. Maybe there's a concert, maybe there's farmers markets, but they want to pass out materials or pass out coupons.
Yeah.
We want to get on Snapchat because that's where people are spending a lot of time. So it has this full diversification activation sort of element to the platform. And then lastly, and maybe arguably the most disruptive piece of this, is we fully integrate with the franchisor's sales systems, the point of sale. What this enables is real-time attribution and evaluation. So it says, look, we just dropped a big activation that lasted 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And we can see that we saw an increase in transactional volume during this time period when we started investing. We can see that the ticket averages started to go up because they spent more money once they were inside the store. You could see all this in real time. By the way, the same goes for if you didn't see that. You know now to pull back on that kind of thing. Maybe that wasn't hitting Nicole and it wasn't effective in hitting the kids' schools. So you are able in real time to make adjustments and optimize your spend, which then on the next quarter, you can optimize and tweak based on those objectives, those activations, and that evaluation. So it's a rinse repeat cycle, and it's all done through our software that is controlled by the franchisor.
And some of those activation examples, I loved you sharing some of those. So we're talking sometimes mail, sometimes canvassing. Like we're talking real local type marketing, not just straight to digital, which is a lot of my life. That's where I spend a lot of my time. Take care of a whole lot of Google ads, a whole lot of Facebook ads, a whole lot of email nurturing for clients. But you're saying like truly the local stuff. So there were several that you just offered right there.
Yeah, so I'd say there's three really juicy, disruptive elements of LOMA's platform. So one, as I mentioned, is the ability to attribute efficacy in real time. Number two is what you just mentioned, is this diversified ecosystem. What we're really considering a marketplace, a true marketplace of all these offline channels that can reach hyper-local consumption, right? So reaching Nicole in those neighborhoods in Indiana that you just never could even consider historically being able to program an ad to these channels. And that is LOMA's marketplace. It has Meta, it has Snap, it has the ability to reach that digital consumption that you're mentioning. But to your point, how about zigging to where everyone's zagging and being able to reach the mailbox in that same work stream, or being able to put canvassers? I mean, we now have the ability to, a partner can get us door hangers on residential doors. So just all these things in this work stream that hit hyper-local channels to be able to reach that consumer. And then the third disruptive piece within LOMA's platform is this fulfillment element. So back to there's 3.5 million storefronts. And let's just say half of those are franchised. Okay. So half of those are being operated by that small business entrepreneur. All those are being run by this franchise agreement. And the franchise agreement is fairly templatized. There's typically 4 fees in the franchise agreement. You have your upfront to build out. You have your royalty license the minute the doors open. You have a national ad fund, which kind of tethers to what you said. Google, reputation management, a lot of their social pages, the signage, the team at corporate marketing, all that's in their national ad fund. That's typically 3 to 5%. But then there's this 4th ad fund that is most of the time mandated. So Nicole, if you operated a franchise and you've got 2 storefronts in Indiana, you've now got this 4th local ad fund that you've got to go spend money on. So what LOMA's software does for the franchisor is it enables you to build that local activation. So we call it a LAP builder. So it's local activation plan. And then you can downstream solicit. So if franchisors up here, down here are all your franchisees, you can say, hey, everyone, I built a plan for the summer for you to do some direct mail, for you to do some back to school stuff when they go back in August, all this. And on average, it's going to cost $3,000 for each of you. Shows up in their inbox, tells them why it's going to benefit them, and then they can hit go. They pay for it on their own, and they could utilize it in sort of this compliance element of their franchise agreement. Yeah. And then boom, it does it for the franchise operator. So it solves the resource problem on the franchisee side. And then it covers the awareness problem on the franchisor side. So you've just got this like automated work stream now that goes downstream into these systems. Yeah. And that's a very simplistic, disruptive component here, where the franchisor really doesn't need as many resources as they used to have, because this is a key piece to LOMA's story. And it goes back to what you started with, which is the LOMA team has over 50 collective years of working within the multi-unit franchise world. One of the co-founders here is Brett Campbell. And Brett spent, 30 years working for Honey Baked Ham, Papa John's, Tropical Smoothie, Moe's Southwestern Grill, which is owned by Focus Brands. And he has been the one developing those plans, been trying to solicit them downstream, trying to figure out, build a report if it worked or not. So we have like this really wildly experienced domain expert inside LOMA that's the voice of the customer. He represents the pain, the blood, the sweat, and the tears that the customer has.
Yeah. And so key, I don't want to jump over it at all, being integrated into the point of sale system, to that system right there, to be able to say, hey, this is working or it's not. As a data nerd, self-proclaimed data nerd, I want to make sure that most marketers aren't being always held responsible to the same things that they're held responsible to. Big goals, right? Hit the big goals, hit the big numbers, but also let's tie your hands a little bit. We're not going to share the data or the insights. Well, how am I supposed to keep hitting big goals? Was that a struggle, or was that just easy sale after, hey, here's everything that we can do? Can we also make sure that we see that POS in real time?
Well, when I go and talk to a brand, and I'm usually the first meeting, I like to be the one to introduce LOMA to a brand. I'm at the age where I'm no longer interested in, we just don't know if it works. I'm willing to say you're not a fit for us at this point if you can't integrate with the point of sale system, because what they're not helping themselves with is not understanding the truth as soon as possible. You need to understand the truth as soon as possible. At some point, there are early adopters, and at some point there's not. And you need the early adopters to get your next cohort. And if you can retain and grow your early cohorts, then the snowball gets bigger, quicker and quicker. But back to this data nerd and point of sale element of it, we come in pretty aggressively with like these 3 principles of frequency, discipline, and context. So if you can stay above the noise line, again, remember, consumers are totally crazy busy.
Totally distracted. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
I just read the average consumer, which I just can't even believe, but the average consumer gets 10,000 impressions a day, phone everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you the brand in the local market, going to get above 10,000? They say it takes 7 hits to get them to remember you, right? So frequency has to play a role in that. You've got to pepper them. Now, what we talked about earlier was this diversification element of don't just hit them on digital, hit them in the mailbox, hit them at kids' schools, hit them everywhere you can. Yeah. Diversify your attack. Then speak local, speak Cubs, speak Dodgers, speak, all the things.
White Sox.
That's right. Okay, soft. And your odds of getting their attention are greater, right? With better context. So those 3 things play a role. But when I use that as the requirement and the desire and the need to integrate with point of sale, because when you bring in that philosophy, truth now will get told, does it work or not? And by the way, LOMA's totally agnostic. We're just this platform that sits in the middle. Right. And I'm not here to tell you that direct mail is the answer. I'm here to let you choose that. Choose direct mail if you want.
Yes.
You've got the marketplace of options. You pick direct mail.
Yeah.
And then the truth will get told if your playlist gets people to dance more than others.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I really appreciate how much you're talking about. There is a diversification. I love that you already said, I think at least once, 58,000 channels of marketing. I sometimes will work with clients who think one channel is going to be their channel. And I'm like, no, it's an and strategy. Like that's why there's multiple channels. Like it's not just one thing anymore. Okay. So tell me, when was the last time you or your team were distracted in your business?
I feel like sometimes we get distracted with someone comes in and we're like, that's not how SaaS companies do it. I even fall trapped there. I'm like, you're right. Those SaaS companies really look pretty damn smart when they do this and they produce this kind of outcome. But, the outcomes you read about, of course, they had that beautiful linear hockey stick growth and that whole traditional SaaS playbook with SDRs on the front. You do all this cool magic on the marketing front and in come these customers. Well, that, by the way, didn't work. It didn't. The drip system was a very infrequent drip. And I have to go back to things that I get more comfortable with, which is more personalized enterprise selling, which is, let's get to know Nicole and her pain and how can we go support and drive value to that constituent. It's not the most scalable answer, but that enterprise sales approach is an example of that distraction that we had to kind of hold on. There is maybe a little nuance that's different at LOMA than that's not textbook, right?
Yeah. One of my mentors, she says lots of things that are great, but she says the fastest path to cash is always a conversation, right? She's like, no matter what somebody's selling, if there's somebody to meet with and understand them better, whether you sell to them or sell to someone like them, like just having the conversation. And then the other one that she said as you were talking, I was reminded of, and I need to put it on my wall. I love it. She says the process is the shortcut. Like going through it, figuring it out and working through it, that is actually the shortcut. It's not trying to find someone else's shortcut or someone else's playbook. It's just working through the process. I think that's a good lesson for all of us, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good mentor you have there. But the thing that I think companies always fall trapped to, and I know I have definitely fallen trapped to this, is you try to get ahead of yourself. You think like you had a good month, now you're ready to like scale for the moon, right? And like you're not. I am almost, I feel insecure about the term founder led. Because, me being on those first calls, can you scale founder being on every sales call? Of course not. But I'm not on that call from a pure selling perspective. Really, why I'm on the call is I'm listening for the type pain and if the answers that we have are being well responded to as a solution to that pain.
Sure, right.
And
like your own mini focus group.
100%. And what happens usually after that is the notes that I take are much more to do about feature sets and functions of our platform that I think maybe we're missing, or as we did demos, I'm watching them like kind of look at it a little confused. And so that's maybe from a user experience, there's some funk there. And I feel like for the first 5 years of the company, those type focus groups, to your point, are what you need. And, this journey is a long journey. It's a non-linear ride that I feel like I need to listen to my own advice and just stop trying to get ahead of it. It's not going to be automated tomorrow. Your founder-led sales process is not going to get solved tomorrow. And that's okay. And I think that's one of those lessons that kind of is the process and the conversation that your mentor was alluding to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's plenty of people that can clickety and there's a buy button. She's like, but that's not always the case when you're serving people and you want to serve them well and you want lifetime value, right? We don't want to just one and done. We don't want to just like have one experience.
Right.
We want to be their solution for life. Yeah. Tell me, what is one of the key lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur? Maybe it's even a mantra you find yourself saying again and again.
Oof. Let's lead with like fail fast. Like don't be afraid of failure and just do it fast, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. Rip off of the Band-Aid. Yep. What is your definition of entrepreneurial success?
Well, God, that's a deeper discussion, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I always say I work for three people. I work for my investors, I work for the employees, and I work for my family, right? I put in a lot of blood, sweat, tear time. And my job is to get those investors a big old return on their investment. I got to get the employees something exciting back on the stock that they have in the company. And then I've got to get the family to know why the hell I was distracted and at the office for the hours that I was. So sadly, I'm giving you a monetary answer, but that's how LOMA will be looked at if it's successful or not, if it yielded a return for those three constituents.
Yeah. And tell me, is there a link you want us to know about?
LOMAplatform.com. Anyone with experience in the multi-unit world, come talk to us. Send me an email, alex@LOMAplatform.com.
Great. We will link that in the show notes. Alex, thank you so much. This was great.
You've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at Smart Cooking Media.